In the bustling metropolises and quiet villages of China, a silent revolution is underway. It is not a revolution of guns and slogans, but of algorithms and data points. This is the era of the social credit system, a grand experiment in social engineering that aims to build a more trustworthy society. By the close of 2024, the system had already woven its tendrils around 1.16 billion individuals and 140 million businesses, tracking their every financial transaction, legal infraction, and even online comment. Imagine a world where your every move, both online and offline, is meticulously recorded and analyzed, contributing to a single score that determines your place in society. The Chinese government argues that this system is essential for fostering trust in a rapidly developing nation grappling with issues like fraud and corruption. However, critics argue that the system is nothing short of Orwellian, a digital panopticon that stifles dissent, erodes privacy, and grants the state unprecedented control over its citizens. At the heart of the social credit system lies the individual social credit score, a numerical representation of a person's trustworthiness. This score is not merely an abstract figure. It has tangible consequences for every aspect of a citizen's life. A high score can unlock a plethora of benefits, from easier access to loans and lower insurance premiums to priority in school admissions, and even preferential treatment when seeking employment. Conversely, a low score can turn into a digital scarlet letter, limiting access to essential services and opportunities. Individuals with poor scores may find themselves barred from booking flights or train tickets, excluded from prestigious universities, and even publicly shamed on government websites and social media platforms. The fear of being ostracized and denied opportunities creates a chilling effect on dissent, as citizens become wary of criticizing the government or engaging in behavior that could be deemed socially undesirable. The social credit system, therefore, acts as a powerful tool of social control, encouraging conformity and discouraging any form of behavior that could jeopardize one's standing within the system. The exact methodology used to calculate the social credit score remains shrouded in secrecy, fueling anxieties about potential biases and inaccuracies. What is clear, however, is that the system goes far beyond mere financial responsibility. It takes into account a wide range of factors, including online behavior, adherence to traffic rules, and even personal relationships. Posting critical comments about the government on social media, for instance, could result in a deduction of points. Similarly, being friends with someone who has a low social credit score could also negatively impact one's own score, creating a system where individuals are incentivized to distance themselves from anyone deemed undesirable by the state. Critics argue that the social credit system paves the way for a dystopian future where the government wields absolute control over information and uses it to suppress dissent and manipulate behavior. The lack of transparency surrounding the system's algorithms only amplifies these fears, leaving citizens unsure of what constitutes good behavior and how to avoid being penalized. Proponents of the social credit system argue that it is a necessary tool for addressing China's unique challenges. They point to the system's role in combating fraud, improving food safety standards, and encouraging charitable donations. Indeed, there is evidence to suggest that the threat of a low social credit score has prompted some citizens to become more law-abiding and socially responsible. Businesses, too, have been incentivized to improve their practices, knowing that their social credit score could impact their bottom line. However, critics argue that these benefits come at too high a price. They contend that the system fosters an atmosphere of fear and self-censorship, discouraging critical thinking and independent thought. Moreover, the system's reliance on technology and data analysis raises concerns about algorithmic bias and the potential for errors that could have devastating consequences for individuals. Section 5. Echoes of control across the Pacific. While China's social credit system stands as a stark example of a government-led initiative to shape social behavior through technology, similar trends are emerging in other parts of the world, albeit in less overt forms. In the United States, for instance, the concept of debanking has raised alarm bells among privacy advocates and civil liberties groups. This practice involves banks closing the accounts of individuals or businesses deemed high risk based on their political affiliations, religious beliefs, or other factors unrelated to their financial history. One of the most high-profile examples of debanking involves allegations that Bank of America has been profiling conservative and religious groups as potential domestic terrorists, potentially in collaboration with federal agencies like the FBI and the Treasury Department. These allegations, if true, raise serious concerns about the use of subjective reputational risk assessments to restrict access to essential financial services based on political or ideological grounds. Section 6. The rise of financial exclusion. The trend of debanking is particularly concerning because it operates in a legal grey area, often without transparency or accountability. Unlike in China, where the social credit system is a clearly defined government program, the criteria used by banks in the United States to assess reputational risk are often opaque and subject to change without notice. This lack of transparency makes it difficult for individuals to challenge decisions made about their accounts and leaves them vulnerable to discrimination based on factors beyond their control. Moreover, the consequences of being debanked can be severe, making it difficult to rent an apartment, secure a loan, or even receive a paycheck. Critics argue that this trend towards financial exclusion based on subjective criteria sets a dangerous precedent, creating a chilling effect on free speech and association. If banks and other financial institutions are allowed to deny services based on political or ideological beliefs, it could create a two-tiered society where certain viewpoints are effectively silenced. Section 7. When healthcare meets big data. The use of social credit-like systems is not limited to the financial sector. In the United States, the Department of Justice has been accused of employing similar tactics to target healthcare professionals, potentially ruining careers and livelihoods based on questionable data and biased algorithms. One such case involves Dr. Ahmad Rifai, a respected physician who was accused of fraud in 2022. Despite maintaining his innocence, Dr. Rifai faced immense pressure from the Department of Justice and was ultimately forced to surrender his medical license, effectively ending his career. Similar cases abound, with doctors like Dr. Arun Bothra and Dr. Pedro Vizcarrondo facing years of legal battles and reputational damage before eventually being cleared of any wrongdoing. These cases highlight the potential for abuse when algorithms and predictive models are used to make high-stakes decisions about individuals' lives. The Department of Justice's system, like China's social credit system, relies on vast amounts of data to identify potential wrongdoers. However, critics argue that this data is often flawed, incomplete, or taken out of context, leading to false positives and unfair accusations. Moreover, the system disproportionately affects minority communities who are already overrepresented in the criminal justice system, raising concerns about racial bias and the perpetuation of systemic inequalities. Section 8. The chilling effect on free speech. The parallels between China's social credit system and emerging practices in the United States raise fundamental questions about the balance between security and freedom in the digital age. While proponents of these systems argue that they are necessary to combat fraud, protect national security, and ensure social harmony, critics warn of the potential for abuse and the erosion of individual liberties. The case of Lois Lerner, former director of the IRS's Exempt Organizations Division, provides a stark reminder of how easily government agencies can overstep their bounds and target individuals or groups based on their political beliefs. The increasing use of data-driven technologies by both governments and private companies amplifies these concerns, making it easier than ever to track, monitor, and potentially punish individuals for their beliefs or affiliations. Section 9. A double-edged sword. The debate surrounding social credit systems and similar technologies is ultimately a debate about the kind of society we want to live in. Do we prioritize security and efficiency, even if it means sacrificing some degree of privacy and freedom? Or do we hold fast to the principles of individual liberty and limited government, even if it means accepting a certain level of risk? What is clear, however, is that we cannot afford to ignore the potential consequences of these technologies. We must engage in a robust public debate about the ethical implications of social credit systems, establish clear guidelines for their use, and ensure that they are subject to appropriate oversight and accountability. The choice is ours to make.